Hello all. In this chapter, we shall be learning about elements of art. You shall be able to understand in greater detail about the various elements and aspects of art. The various aspects that we shall be studying are form and content, composition, plane, balance, shape, line, perspective, space, color, texture, stylistics, media, technique. What makes art beautiful? Beauty and aesthetics in art is actually an interaction between line, color, texture, sound, shape, motion and size that is pleasing to the senses. Defining beauty and aesthetics in art is a complicated subject, since beauty is subjective and can change based on context. However, the basic human instinct and internal appreciation, a craving for harmony, balance and rhythm is one of the prime objectives of art. Art has its own language and vocabulary of visual ideas, form, color, space, artistry, emotion and spirit, which need to be learned by artist and the viewer. In order for us to know when an art is about, educating our eye to see relationship of color and form and art historical references, we can learn the language of art. This can be done by looking at a lot of art, many different kinds for a long time, as well as learning about the history of art in books, gallery and museum lectures, etc. Aesthetics is a branch of philosophy dealing with the nature of art, beauty and taste. With the creation and appreciation of beauty, it is more scientifically defined as the study of sensory or sensori emotional values, sometimes called judgments of sentiment and taste. More broadly, scholars in the field define aesthetics as critical reflection on art, culture and nature. Some define aesthetics as the science of the sense experiences and beauty as the most perfect kind of knowledge that sense experience can have. Immanuel Kant thought that the aesthetic experience of beauty is a judgment of a subjective but similar human truth, since all people should agree that this rose is beautiful if it in fact is. For others, aesthetic appreciation of beauty is the most perfect reconciliation of the sensual and rational parts of human nature. Let us move on to form and content. Any visual art includes two aspects, form and content. Form is related to the visible features inherent in the artwork. Form can mean either or all of the following: the elements of art, the principles of design and the actual physical material that the artist has used. Referring to purely visual aspects of art and architecture, the term form encompasses qualities of line, shape, color, light, texture, space, mass, volume and composition. These qualities are known as formal elements. When art historians use the term formal, they mean relating to form. Content is idea based and is the meaning we as viewers derive from that artwork. It means neither or all of the following. What the artist mean to portray, what the artist actually did portray, and how we react as individuals to both the intended and the actual messages. Additionally, content includes ways in which works were influenced by religion or politics or society in general. Even the artist's use of hallucinogenic substances at the time it was created. All these factors together make up the content side of art. Let us now discuss composition. Of the many kinds of art, the focus of this module is on the visual arts. Visual arts have their vocabulary and language, and when the artist chooses to work with visual arts, she or he thinks in a particular language. The language consists of formal elements which include line, shape, space, color, light and dark, among others. When an artist combines these elements in a certain manner that becomes his or her style, the possibilities are nearly endless, and artistic choice depends both on the time and place where the work was created as well as the objectives of the individual artist. The composition of a work of art essentially means its overall plan or structure. Composition is all about the relationship among the various components of elements that exist with each other in balance and harmony. The relationship of parts to each other and to the whole work and its impact on the viewer. However, the composition is different from the theme or the content of the painting. Moving to the plane now. A plane is a flat surface having a direction in space. Brancusi's bird in the first image rises in a vertical plane. Magritte's pipe in the second figure lies in the horizontal plane, and the figure of God in God as architect in the third one bends over to create two diagonal planes. And now to balance. In a successful composition, the harmonious blending of formal elements creates balance. The simplest form of balance is symmetry, in which there is an exact correspondence of parts on either side of a central axis. The left side of a work is a mirror image of the right side. The human body is an example of symmetry, as shown in Leonardo's Vitruvian Man in the first figure here. Balance can also be achieved by non-equivalent elements. In Bernini's David, the next figure, the weight of the figure is not evenly distributed on either side of the central axis. However, although the parts are not arranged symmetrically, there is an equilibrium between them that produces an aesthetically satisfying result. This is known as asymmetrical balance. Let us now talk about shape. Shape is the two-dimensional or flat area defined by the borders of an enclosing outline or contour. Shape can be geometric, biomorphic, suggesting living things, sometimes called organic, closed or open. When lines enclose a space, they create a shape, and the line that outlines the shape is called its contour. Shapes are used by artists to convey ideas and emotions. Open shapes create a greater sense of movement than closed ones. Let us now talk about lines. Line and shape are attributes of form. Line is an element usually drawn or painted, the length of which is so much greater than the width that we perceive it as having only length. Line can be actual, as when the line is visible, or it can be implied, as when the movement of the viewer's eyes over the surface of a work follows a path determined by the artist. Straight or classic. Lines provide stability and structure to a composition and can be vertical, horizontal or diagonal on the surface of the work. A vertical line seems to stand stiffly at attention. A horizontal line lies down and a diagonal seems to be falling ever. Zigzags have an aggressive, sharp quality, whereas a wavy line is more graceful and like a curve, more naturally associated with the outline of the human body. Parallel lines are balanced and harmonious, implying an endless continuous movement. Perpendicular, converging and intersecting lines meet and create a sense of force and counter force. Expressive lines refer to curved marks that increase the sense of dynamism of a work of art. These types of line often follow an undetermined path of sinuous curves. Straight is associated with rightness, honesty and truth, while crooked, whether referring to a line or a person's character, denotes the opposite. The outline or the contour lines create a border or path around the edge of a shape, thereby outlining and defining it. Cross contours lines delineate differences in the features of a surface. They can give the illusion of three dimensions and a sense of form or shading. In this figure, the thin line A seems delicate, unassertive, even weak. The thick one B seems aggressive, forceful and strong. The flat line C suggests calmness, like the surface of a quiet sea, whereas the wavy line D implies the reverse. The angular line E climbs upwards like the edge of a rocky mountain. Westerners understand E as going up and F as going down because we read from left to right. Lines are used for various other purposes too. Look at this figure. Here the upward curves create a happy face, and in B the downward curves create a sad one. In C the face is inscrutable. In this figure, even though drawn lines have only two dimensions, height and width, they can be used by an artist to make an object appear three-dimensional. The parallel modeling lines on the front surface of the cube are called hatching. If they intersect other parallel lines, as in the cylinder and the oblique surface of the cube, they are known as cross hatching. The closer the lines are to each other, the darker their surface. They suggest shade or shading, which is a gradual transition from light to dark. Shading appears on the side of the object that is turned away from the light source. A shadow is seen as dark and denotes the absence of light. It is cast onto surface when the source of light is blocked by an object. And now to perspective. Artists use perspective to aid them in creating the illusion of depth. In other, perspective is a specialized aspect of composition in which the three-dimensional world is represented on a flat surface or a picture plane. The simplest system is one-point perspective. The picture plane, the surface of a painting or a relief sculpture, is conceived of a window whose frame conforms to the frame of the painting. The edges of rectilinear objects in the picture are extended along imaginary lines of sight. These lines are perpendicular to the picture plane and parallel to each other. Although parallel lines never meet in reality, they seem to converge at a point known as the vanishing point. Various techniques for conveying a sense of pictorial depth has been devised by artists in different cultures and at different times. Let us talk about space. Space contains forms. It may be actual or three-dimensional, as it is with sculpture and architecture, or it may be fictional, represented illusionistically in two dimensions, as when artists represent recession into the distance on a flat surface, such as a wall or canvas, by using various systems of perspective. Let us see color. Color has several attributes. These includes hue, value and saturation. Hue is what we think of when we hear the word color. Red is one hue, yellow is another. Each has a different wavelength. Mixing one color with another changes its wavelength and hence its hue. Value. The relative lightness or darkness of an image is its value, also called brightness, shade or tone. An object's value is a function of the amount of light reflected from its surface. Grey, for example, reflects more light than black, but less than white, which makes grey lighter than black and darker than white. In black and white reproductions of colored objects, you see only value, and some artworks, for example, a drawing made with black ink, possesses only value, not hue or saturation. Saturation. Saturation, also sometimes referred to as intensity, is a color's quality of brightness or dullness. A color described as highly saturated looks vivid and pure. A hue of low saturation may or look a little muddy or grayed. Texture, another attributes of form, is a tactile or touch perceived quality of a surface. It is described by words such as smooth, polished, rough, prickly, grainy or oily. Texture takes two forms: the texture of the actual surface of the work of an art and the implied illusionistically described surface of objects represented in work of art. Let us move on to stylistics. The following terms describe representational or figurative works of art which depict recognizable subject matter. Naturalistic, depicting figures and objects more or less as we see them. Realistic, depicting figures and objects to resemble their actual appearances rather than in a distorted or abstract way. Illusionistic, depicting figures, objects and the space they occupy so convincingly that an appearance of reality is achieved. Idealized, depicting an object according to an accepted standard of beauty. Stylized, depicting certain features as non-organic surface elements rather than naturalistically or realistically. Abstract describes forms that do not accurately depict real objects. The artist may be attempting to convey the essence of an object rather than its actual appearance. Note that the subject matter may be recognizable, making the work representational, but in a non-naturalistic form. In the next figure, you will see a cow painted in various painting styles. Note the transitions. Media, medium plural media, refers to the material or materials from which a work of art is created. Media can range from traditional materials like paint, ink and stone and extended to plastic, junk, steel, food, etc. Technique. Technique is the process that transforms media into a work of art. Two-dimensional media and techniques include painting, drawing, prints and photography. Three-dimensional media and techniques are sculpture, for example using stone, wood, clay or cast metal, architecture and many small-scale arts such as jewelry, containers or vessels. In media such as ceramics, metal or wood. In the earlier figure, Subodh Gupta has used utensils to express his muteness of the human life. Look at various people have interpreted the elements of art.